In 2008, India was stunned by a bizarre and complicated murder case. A teenage girl was found dead in her locked bedroom. Strangely, her parents were also at home, but neither of them heard anything from her room the night before her body was found. Not long after, the dead body of the suspect was also found on the terrace. This case became controversial as the investigation grew, questions with suspects emerging day after day. Yet it has gone cold due to insufficient evidence. Today let's talk about the case famously known as the Arushi murder case. Arushi Talwar, who was 13 years old in 2008, was the daughter of dentist couple Dr. Rajesh Talwar and Dr. Nupur Talwar. Arushi, born on May 24, 1994. Dr. Rajesh Talwar and Dr. Nupur Talwar had complications in conceiving the child, and they always wanted to have a child, so they chose if and Arushi came to their life. She was the only child of the couple and deeply cherished by her parents. The prosperous family resided on the second floor of the L32 apartment of Jalvayu Vihar Sector 25, Noida, India. Arushi was a student at Delhi Public School and was perceived by those who knew her as intelligent and captivating mind. She had a passion for dancing and have big dreams of traveling the world. Her future was promising. Rajesh and Nupur managed a dental clinic in Sector 27 of Noida and were esteemed professionals in their community. Additionally, Rajesh held the role of head of the dental department at Fortis Hospital and also lectured at its dental college. Due to their demanding work schedules, which often began at 9 a.m. and extended late into the night, they enlisted help from people for various tasks around their home. They had previously employed Vishnu Sharma, who was assisted both in their home and at the clinic. Due to Vishnu's frequent travels, he would often recommend relatives or friends as temporary replacements. One such recommendation, Umesh Sharma, who took on the role of the family's driver. In addition, the Talwar hired a maid to assist with household chores. Another individual Vishnu introduced to the family was 45-year-old Hemraj Banjade. However, in a turn of events, the Talwar chose to employ Hemraj on a permanent basis, leading to Vishnu's services no longer being required. Hemraj was provided a room in the family's apartment known to be reliable. He began each day early, running errands such as fetching milk or groceries. The Talwar were content with his contributions. On May 15, 2008, it was a day like any other for the family. The parents attended to their professional duties while Arushi went to school. Nupur worked at their clinic from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and later fetched Arushi from school at 1:30 p.m. They returned home for lunch and were joined by Vandana Talwar, Nupur's sister-in-law. After their meal and a pleasant chat, Nupur headed to Fortis Hospital at 4:30 p.m. for her shift, concluding at 7:30 p.m. Rajesh, Arushi's father, served as a dental professor at ITS Dental College. His workday began at 8:45 a.m. and concluded at 3:30 p.m. After his teaching duties, he went to his clinic where he attended to patients until 8 p.m. Umesh, their driver, then drove him home, arriving at the apartment around 9:30 p.m. after parking. The Umesh ascended to the Talwar's residence to return both the car keys and Rajesh's bag, handing them to Hemraj. Umesh noted that the family appeared to be preparing for dinner. He is believed to be the last outsider to have seen Arushi and Hemraj. Before the subsequent tragic event, the family wrapped up their dinner by 10 p.m. With Arushi's birthday approaching, her parents decided to surprise her with an early present. They presented her with a Sony digital camera in her room. Delighted, Arushi captured moments of joy with her parents. The timestamp of the last photo was 10:10 p.m., after which her parents retreated to their own room despite the late hour Rajesh had tasks to complete, which included sending an email, checking stock market updates, and browsing dentistry websites. He requested Nupur to activate the internet router in Arushi's bedroom. Given that her room door could only be opened from the inside, Nupur had to either knock or use a spare key located in her bedside drawer. Upon entering, she found Arushi reading a book. After bidding her daughter good night, Nupur exited and shut the door behind her. Close to midnight, Arushi's friend, Anmol, tried reaching her on both her mobile and the Talwar residence's landline, but it was unavailable. By 12:30 a.m. he sent an SMS which Arushi's phone didn't receive. The last recorded activity on the internet router was at 1:28 a.m. leading the CBI to infer that Rajesh was online up to that moment. On the morning of May 16, 2008, the Talwar's housemaid Bharti Mandal approached the entrance of their apartment at around 6 a.m. It was unusual for Bharti, when Hemraj, typically the first one awake, didn't respond after several bell rings. Nupur and Rajesh generally slept, in leaving Hemraj to greet early visitors. After some waiting, Nupur finally opened the inner door, expressing surprise over Hemraj's absence and questioning why he hadn't attended to the outer door. They initially presumed Hemraj had stepped out for errands. Drawn out by the conversation, Rajesh emerged from his bedroom to find a half-empty bottle of his Scotch whiskey on the living room table. Neither he nor Nupur recalled placing it there. Coupled with Hemraj's mysterious disappearance, alarm bells rang. They headed to Arushi's room expecting the door to be locked from the inside. To their horror, the door wasn't secured upon entering. They were met with devastating sight of Arushi in a pool of blood. Flesh was overtaken by anguished screams while Nupur stood frozen in shock. In a state of panic, Bharti hurriedly sought assistance from neighbors before police could respond. The apartment filled with concerned individuals, inadvertently compromising the crime scene. The grieving parents, overwhelmed by shock and grief, pointed fingers at the absent Hemraj, accusing him of the atrocity. By the time the police arrived, around 15 individuals have congregated in the living room and another 5 to 6 in the Talwar's bedroom. Only Arushi's room remained unoccupied. The crime scene's integrity had been severely compromised, officers describing it as completely trampled upon. The media was quick to the scene, gathered by 8 a.m. Arushi's remains were transferred for an autopsy at 8:30 a.m. The report detailed that she had sustained a blood force trauma above her left eye, with the injury to her parietal bone measuring 4 centimeters by 3 centimeters. In addition, her neck bore a deep, precise cut 6 centimeters deep and 14 centimeters long. It was deduced that the gash to her neck was inflicted post-mortem, with the fatal injury being the blunt force trauma to her head. The meticulousness of the cut on her neck indicated it was inflicted with surgical precision, targeting the critical left common carotid artery and windpipe. Concerns of a possible sexual assault lead investigators to perform further examinations on Arushi's body. Dr. Sunil Doer, who spearheaded the autopsy, reported no evidence of such an assault nor any foreign DNA presence in Arushi's genital area. Instead, a whitish discharge typical for teenage girls nearing their menstrual cycle was found. Arushi's body was brought back to the apartment by 1 p.m. on the same day. Ice slabs were placed beneath it with plans set in motion for a swift cremation. This move raised eyebrows as the public perceived the Talwar's decision to cremate Arushi as being hasty, especially before a comprehensive investigation could be carried out. Adding to the skepticism was the sight of the housemaid cleaning the residence, Arushi's room included. In response to the rising questions, the Talwars mentioned that Arushi's body was rapidly decomposing. They also asserted that they got permission to clean the residence from an officer who believed they had gathered sufficient evidence. Segments of the mattress and pillow tainted with blood were retained for police scrutiny, while the remnants were designated for disposal. But with the Talwar's terrace door locked and its key missing, the items intended for disposal, including the ice used to preserve Arushi's body, ended up on a neighbor's terrace. The cremation took place at 4 p.m. The case took a peculiar turn, with Hemraj as the prime suspect. A visitor identified what appeared to be blood stained on the terrace door handle on the day Arushi was found, yet the police initially dismissed this observation, largely based on conflicting witness accounts and Rajesh's claim that he couldn't find the key to the terrace's lock. The following day, May 17th, police officer K.K. Gautam was at the Talwar's residence for additional scrutiny. Upon being shown the blood stain by Rajesh's brother-in-law, he was persuaded to further investigate. The absence of spare keys led to a forced entry by breaking the lock. To their astonishment, they found a heavily decomposed body positioned right in front of an AC fan. This revelation was conveyed to Rajesh and Nupur, who were headed to Haridwar for ash-spreading ritual. Upon hearing the news, Rajesh and Nupur made an immediate return to their apartment. Nupur waited in the vehicle while Rajesh proceeded upstairs, confronted by a harrowing scene. On the terrace, he observed a blood trail indicating the body might have been dragged. Due to severe decomposition, Rajesh was unable to identify the corpse. However, a friend of Hemraj recognized it as the family's previously missing servant. The autopsy report for Hemraj revealed that he had suffered a blunt injury to the back of his head similar to Arushi's injury. Moreover, both victims had parallel cuts on their necks and bore no signs of asphyxia. Pinaki Misra, the Talwar's lawyer, mentioned witnesses spotting hair in Hemraj's mouth, potentially from assailant. However, this clue remained unexplored by the police. The media spotlight intensified with the discovery of Hemraj's body. The man initially thought to be Arushi's killer was found deceased. Nearby indications were evident of an attempt to conceal the body, with the bed cover draped over a neighboring iron grill, despite signs suggesting the body had been dragged upon. Print hinted that Hemraj might have attempted to crawl during his final moments. What's perplexing about this case is the trajectory it took. Instead of investigating potential suspects who might harbor resentment against the family and who were familiar with the house's layout, the probe took a shocking turn. Both the Delhi and Up police began suspecting Rajesh and Nupur Talwar The police were skeptical about how the parents failed to hear any commotion during the night of the murder. The door to Arushi's room could be accessed only from within or with a key from the parents' room. The Talwar's inability to account for how an outsider gained access combined with their rush to cremate Arushi only deepened the suspicions against them. The police's initial suspicion was directed towards Vishnu, suspecting he murdered Hemraj over a job-related dispute and killed Arushi as she may have witnessed the act. Vishnu, along with other former servants of the Talwar household, was taken in for questioning despite their suspicions. They couldn't gather any concrete evidence against him. Rajesh's behavior further complicated the investigation. Reports claim he pressured the police to divert their attention from his apartment and instead search for Hemraj. On May 16, even offering funds to expedite the process. His prolonged delay in fetching the key to his terrace and his later claim of not recognizing Hemraj, who had been working closely with him, raised eyebrows. Additionally, Hemraj's friends came forward revealing that he had shared concerns about his safety. The reasons behind these threats remain unknown. The police detained Rajesh and Nupur based on circumstantial evidence. Inspector General Gurudarshan Singh proposed two potential scenarios. In the first, he theorized that Hemraj was blackmailing Rajesh over knowledge of an extramarital affair, leading Rajesh to murder him. This version assumes Arushi was killed after inadvertently witnessing the crime. The second theory was more scandalous and divisive. Singh suggested that Arushi, frustrated with her father's alleged infidelity, sought solace in hammer, which culminated in a sexual encounter. Rajesh supposedly discovered them and in his fury, killed both in a fit of rage. The controversial claim that Hemraj's postmortem showed signs of recent or imminent sexual activity further intensified this speculation. The public was outraged by this insinuations, viewing them as an attack on Arushi's character. They believed the police were twisting Arushi's sociable nature and regular interactions with friends to create a narrative that cast her in a negative light. Given the uproar, the Minister for Women and Child Development sought the suspension of Inspector General Gurudarshan Singh while he was transferred. He was reinstated within 2 months. Shortly after the initial investigation, Krishna Thattarai was arrested. On June 7, on suspicion of involvement in the murders, there was speculation among Talwar's defense team that Krishna might have been motivated to harm the Talwar, especially after Rajesh reportedly berated him at work. This sentiment was somewhat validated when Umesh, the driver, testified to overhearing a conversation between Krishna and Hemraj, where Krishna hinted at dealing with Rajesh. Under the influence of a narcotics test, Krishna implicated another man, Rajkumar, who was employed by the Durranis, Talwar's co-workers. The police found a bloody t-shirt at Rajkumar's residence, but the Durranis dismissed this, attributing the blood to boils on Rajkumar's body, further thickening the plot. Vijay Mandal, a domestic helper in the neighborhood who had associations with Hemraj, Krishna and Rajkumar, was also taken into custody. The results from the narcotics test on these men weren't publicly disclosed, but summaries of their confessions became available. Rajkumar in his statement claimed that Krishna killed Arushi after she threatened to expose some wrongdoing and subsequently murdered Hemraj due to the unexpected nature of the act. Krishna's accounts were inconsistent. While he claimed Rajkumar and Vijay were involved in the crime, he offered varying versions of the events in 3 separate confessions. However, these confessions were met with skepticism and alibis. Krishna's families and landlord asserted that he was home on the night of the murder. Anita Durrani vouched for Rajkumar, claiming he was at her residence past midnight, and Mandal's employer, a neighboring resident, stated he was at his garage during the time of the incident. Given the array of conflicting statements, alibi, and the questionable reliability of narcotics tests, the truth seemed even more elusive. The investigation's direction took a questionable turn when in September 2008 all 3 primary suspects, Krishna, Rajkumar, and Mandal, were released due to a lack of substantial evidence. This shift only heightened public skepticism towards the police, especially after allegations surfaced that both Rajkumar and Vijay were physically abused while in custody, leading to forced confessions. The subsequent investigations proved frustratingly inconclusive. Authorities maintained a myopic focus on the Talwar parents, continually circling back to them despite mounting contradictions. Curiously, the crime scene appeared preserved but lacked signs of struggle, adding to the puzzling nature of the case. The police pointed to potential tampering with Arushi's vaginal swab, but it was eventually determined that contamination was due to inadvertent negligence, not intentional manipulation. A golf club became a focal point given its potential use in the murder. Rajesh, who owned a set, was queried about 2 of them that seemed overly cleaned. While he acknowledged cleaning them, he had witnesses testify that he did not conceal or manipulate them with nefarious intent. In a turn of events, the CBI decided to close the case, but not before naming Rajesh Talwar as the prime suspect despite their protest, and a file petition. The legal system did not rule in the Talwars' favor. On May 11, 2013, both parents were summoned to trial, with the outcome of the CBI court's decision in November declaring them guilty of the murders of their daughter Arushi Talwar and Hemraj. Consequently, they were sentenced to life in prison. The Talwars' guilty verdict in 2013 ignited significant controversy as it rested on flimsy evidence and appeared hastily conceived. Public sentiment heavily criticized what seemed to be a prejudiced judgment by the courts, as the verdict seemed predetermined even before the defense's arguments were heard. In light of these concerns, when the case underwent review by the High Court, it arrived at a different conclusion. The High Court ruled in the Talwars' favor, acquitting them in 2014. Due to the absence of concrete evidence, the CBI findings were seen as speculative and insufficient for a conviction. Following their release, the Talwar initiated a campaign for justice. They launched a website named Justice for Arushi Talwar, spotlighting the many missteps and oversights of the police throughout the investigation. Nupur Talwar also attempted to document her experiences during detention, though her writings were continually intercepted by guards. The murderers of Arushi Talwar and Hemraj Banjid, though seemingly straightforward without concrete evidence and plagued by investigative shortcomings, the case remains unsolved. Many have their own suspicions, but without definitive proof they remain just that, suspicions, despite the case going cold. There is a continued plea from the public for justice for the victims. Hopefully the truth will one day come to light.